Before we go on, there's something important you need to understand. This isn't a diagnosis, a label, or a checklist to judge you. It's a way to listen to what your brain has been trying to tell you for a while. Because often, when the mind can't scream, it starts to whisper through behaviors that seem normal. Small habits, everyday reactions, thoughts we take for granted. And that's the problem. We normalize them. Most people don't realize their brain isn't failing all at once, but little by little. Not with an obvious collapse, but with subtle signals that repeat day after day. Signals we mistake for quirks, personality traits, or simple human flaws. But they're not. Your brain is a survival machine. When the world becomes too overwhelming, when anxiety, fear, or emotional pain can't find an outlet, the mind searches for other ways to release that pressure. And it does so through behaviors that give it an illusion of control, of momentary relief, even if guilt, shame, or mental exhaustion follow later. Next, we're going to analyze 10 behaviors that seem harmless on the surface, but are actually clear signs that the brain is asking for help. We'll start with number 10. You're sitting watching TV. Nothing special is happening. The show plays on, time passes, and suddenly you realize you've been scratching a small blemish on your arm for 20 minutes. Your skin is already red. Maybe it's bleeding. And still, you don't stop. It's not conscious at first. It just happens. This isn't a bad habit or an unimportant quirk. It's called excoriation disorder or compulsive skin picking. In that moment, your brain sends a clear, urgent command. Something needs to be fixed right now. And your hands obey without question. During the act, a strange feeling of relief appears, as if something is finally under control. But when it ends, the opposite arrives. Shame, guilt, marks on your skin that remind you of what you just did. This behavior is often related to anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, or traumatic experiences. When the outside world feels too chaotic, too unpredictable, the brain creates a small, controllable problem. Your skin becomes that problem. Something you can touch, modify, master, even if only for a few minutes. It's not weakness. It's not a lack of willpower. It's your brain trying to survive, desperately seeking an outlet when it doesn't know how to handle everything else. It's 2 a.m. You're in bed, eyes closed, but your mind won't rest. Suddenly, an uncomfortable conversation from 3 years ago reappears. Every word returns with cruel clarity. Or perhaps it's not the past, but the future. Dialogues that haven't happened yet. Responses you rehearse over and over for situations that will probably never arrive. That's called rumination. Your brain has gotten stuck in a loop, constantly jumping between the past and the future, unable to stay in the present. It's not reflection. It's not useful analysis. It's an endless repetition that leads to no solution. Rumination is a central symptom of depression and anxiety disorders. The brain believes that if it replays that moment one more time, if it reviews it from another angle, it will finally manage to resolve it. But it never happens. Each repetition doesn't bring clarity, only more emotional exhaustion. Studies show that people who ruminate are much more likely to develop major depression. Not because they think too much, but because their mind has lost the ability to let go. What should be a tool for learning becomes a mental prison. Your brain isn't being careful or profound. It's failing in its basic function of letting you rest. And the more it tries to fix the past or control the future, the further it pulls you from the only place you can truly live, the present. Someone tells you exciting news, something that, in theory, should make you happy. You listen, nod, and respond with a simple, "Oh, that's good." Or maybe you're the one receiving the news and feeling absolutely nothing. Your best friend is crying in front of you, and nothing happens inside. No reaction, no emotion, just emptiness. This is called emotional blunting, and it's one of the most unsettling experiences a person can have. The brain's emotional system stops responding, as if someone has turned the volume down almost to mute. Emotions don't disappear entirely, but they become muffled, distant, distorted. This state can appear in cases of severe depression or post-traumatic stress disorder. From the outside, you might seem calm, even strong. But inside, there's a constant feeling of disconnection, as if you're watching your own life through a foggy pane of glass. You see what's happening, you know how you should feel, but you can't access it. It's not coldness, it's not emotional maturity, it's not self-control. It's a clear sign that something isn't working right. The brain, feeling overwhelmed by pain, decides to shut off access to all emotions, even the good ones. And what remains isn't calm, but a kind of absence that weighs more than many imagine. You send a message, 10 minutes pass, then 30, an hour, no response. A normal brain thinks the other person is busy. Yours doesn't. Yours starts writing an entire movie in your head. They don't love you anymore. They're mad at you. You did something wrong. You're going to end up alone. Everything crumbles from a simple silence. This is catastrophic thinking. Your mind takes a tiny spark and turns it into an uncontrollable fire. A slightly dry comment from your boss transforms, in seconds, into the absolute certainty that you're going to be fired, that you'll lose your stability, that everything will go wrong. It's not normal worry. It's a disproportionate reaction that activates without you being able to stop it. This pattern is characteristic of generalized anxiety disorder. The brain's threat detection system stops working correctly. It starts seeing danger everywhere, even where there isn't any. It's not preparing you for the worst. It's punishing you with fictional scenarios that feel real. The problem isn't that you imagine consequences. The problem is that your brain can no longer distinguish between possibility and reality. It lives in a constant state of alarm, emotionally exhausting you, forcing you to react to catastrophes that only exist within your mind. Someone makes a minimal criticism, barely a comment, and yet, you feel it like a direct blow to the chest. A friend takes a little longer than usual to respond to a message, and your mind reacts immediately. They hate you. You did something wrong. You disappointed someone. The reaction is instantaneous, intense, impossible to ignore. This is known as rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD. It's extremely common in people with ADHD. It works like a faulty panic button that activates at the slightest sign of rejection, even when that rejection isn't real. A distracted glance, a neutral tone, a short response can feel like devastating personal attacks. People living with RSD often become extreme people pleasers. They seek perfection, not out of ambition, but out of fear. Fear of not being enough, of failing, of being rejected. The most unsettling thing is that the pain they feel isn't metaphorical. The brain processes that emotional wound very similarly to physical pain. And it really hurts. It's not exaggerated hypersensitivity. It's not drama. It's an emotional system that reacts with disproportionate intensity. A brain that lives in constant alert, anticipating rejection even before it exists, and punishing itself for the mere possibility of not being accepted. Before leaving the house, you check the lock exactly 7 times. If you lose count, you start over. Or maybe you arrange the objects on your desk in perfect symmetry every morning. If something is even slightly out of place, an intense feeling of dread invades your body. From the outside, it looks like order. From the inside, it's urgency. This is obsessive-compulsive disorder. It's not about being meticulous or organized. It's the constant feeling that something terrible will happen if you don't perform a specific action. The ritual isn't a preference. It's a desperate demand from the brain to turn off the fear. Like an invisible electric fence, if you cross it, the internal alarm goes off. A person with OCD might wash their hands until they're raw, not due to actual dirt, but to erase an intrusive thought. They might check the kitchen dozens of times, convinced that a single mistake will cause a fire. The ritual offers relief for a few moments, but it never lasts. The anxiety returns with more intensity, demanding that the ritual be repeated, often more intensely. It's a cruel cycle that consumes time, energy, and peace of mind. It's not control. It's a prison. You take a bite of your favorite food, the one you used to look forward to, and it tastes like nothing. Like cardboard. A friend announces their engagement, and you know you should feel excited, but nothing happens inside. No joy, no sadness, just a strange, persistent emptiness. That's anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. It's one of the most devastating symptoms of depression. The brain has a pleasure circuit. When something good happens, it activates, releases dopamine, and the feeling of well-being appears. With anhedonia, that circuit is damaged. The signal doesn't get through. You go to a party, everyone is laughing, talking, enjoying themselves. You know you should be having a good time, but you feel like a spectator, watching your own life from the outside, disconnected. There's social anhedonia, where being with other people becomes a burden, and physical anhedonia, when food, music, or touch stop causing any sensation. It's not a lack of gratitude. It's not indifference. It's a clear sign that something profound has broken in how the brain processes pleasure. When joy disappears, it's not because there's no reason, but because the mind no longer knows how to receive it. You send a message and don't get an immediate response. Your mind reacts instantly. You did something wrong. Anxiety appears without asking permission. Then you ask, "Are you mad at me?" They answer no. For a second, relief comes. But it doesn't last long. Doubt returns. What if they're just saying it not to hurt you? What if it's not true? Better to ask again, just to be sure. This is called excessive reassurance seeking. It's not about getting new information. The person asking already knows the answer. What they're looking for is to silence an intense feeling of anxiety. The problem is, the more reassurance is sought, the more dependent the brain becomes on it. The relief never sticks. It always fades away. Some people even confess minor mistakes from years ago, hoping to hear that everything is okay. They don't do it to annoy. They do it because they're trapped in a loop of real distress. The brain tries to achieve absolute certainty in a world that can't offer it. And that impossible search becomes a constant source of suffering, where no answer is enough and no security lasts too long. You spend 45 minutes scrolling through Netflix and don't choose anything. You stand in the supermarket aisle staring at cereal boxes until someone looks at you strangely. The waiter asks what you want to order, and even though it's a simple question, your mind freezes. Suddenly, absurd but terrifying scenarios appear. What if you choose wrong? What if the food is cold? What if everyone thinks you made a bad decision? This is decision paralysis. It's not normal indecision or being overly demanding. It's a brain trapped trying to avoid error at all costs, waiting for perfect certainty that never arrives. So it doesn't decide. It freezes. Minutes turn into hours. Hours into days. This pattern is usually related to anxiety. Every daily choice transforms into a high-stakes situation within the mind. And that tension extends to everything. Work decisions are postponed indefinitely. Relationships are suspended in uncertainty. The fear of making a mistake outweighs any desire to move forward. Almost 1 in 5 adults lives with enough anxiety to turn simple decisions into actual mental torture chambers. When choosing something that others do without thinking becomes unbearable. It's not laziness or a lack of character. It's the brain sending a clear signal that it no longer knows how to handle the fear of making a mistake. You quit your job without another plan. You buy a one-way ticket to a country you've never visited. You spend money you can't afford and call it spontaneity. In the moment, everything feels intense, liberating, almost inevitable. There's no pause, no reflection, just immediate action. The real name for this is impulse control disorder. The brain's brake button doesn't work. You feel the urge and act instantly, without thinking about the consequences. A healthy brain has a voice that says, "Wait, what could go wrong?" In yours, that voice is absent, as if it's gone on permanent vacation. This can manifest as compulsive shopping that leads to suffocating debt, binges that end in physical and emotional guilt, or angry outbursts that destroy important relationships. It's not living intensely. It's getting caught in a constant cycle of action and regret. Many people make life-changing decisions in a matter of seconds and spend years facing the consequences. The brain's fear response system stops perceiving risk, not because it doesn't exist, but because the mind no longer knows how to recognize it. And when danger disappears from the radar, the damage usually comes too late. So, what does all this mean? These behaviors aren't just simple oddities or curious labels to explain our quirks. They are windows that allow us to see how the brain is functioning internally, and sometimes how that functioning has become unbalanced without anyone noticing. Recognizing these patterns doesn't mean diagnosing yourself or labeling yourself. It means understanding. Understanding that if you've seen yourself reflected in any of these behaviors, you're not broken, you're not dramatic, you're not weak. Your brain isn't just failing for no reason. It's sending a signal, a strong, persistent signal trying to tell you that something needs attention. The brain doesn't always know how to ask for help with words. Sometimes it does so through rituals, repetitive thoughts, uncontrollable impulses, or a total absence of pleasure. These are survival mechanisms that, instead of protecting, end up causing more pain. But even there's no malice or defect, just a system that has learned to function this way because it couldn't find another way out. Listening to these signals isn't giving up. It's the first act of real self-care. Because ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. On the contrary, they usually become more intense, louder, harder to manage over time. Recognizing them is like turning on the dashboard light when the engine warns that something isn't right. If anything you've heard sounds familiar, pay attention. You're not alone. It's not a flaw in your personality. It's your brain's warning light turning on. And accepting that signal, facing it head on, and listening to it, is the strongest and bravest step you can take.